All throughout last year, we focused on words to use instead of good. This year, guys, I want to focus on learning some new vocabulary, words, adjectives that we can use not instead of good, but words that we can use instead of. So this first segment, I'm going to introduce you a piece of vocabulary. By the way, we kicked this off for our 2022 first show last week, and last week's word was horrible. And somebody asked me an interesting question. They said, what's the difference between horrible and terrible? So I want to review that and then introduce this week's word. So to remind you, last week's word was horrible. And horrible means very bad or unpleasant and used to describe something that you do not like. Okay, you don't like it. For example, I might listen to some music by Justin Bieber and I might say, that's horrible, man, because I don't like it. Now watch what happens when we look at the definition of terrible. Terrible, very unpleasant, so that's similar, making you feel very unhappy, upset, or frightened. Frightened. Well, I don't like Justin Bieber's music, but I'm certainly not frightened by it. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not even afraid of Justin Bieber. So the idea of terrible, think about it. It contains meaning from its root word, which is terror. Terror. So terrible is derived from the noun terror. And terror means to instill fear, right? So something that's terrible, we should describe as something that causes us fear. Whereas horrible doesn't contain that meaning of fear. It's just something you don't like. You might eat something and say, oh, that's horrible, right? You might, oh, what a terrible hamburger. What a horrible hamburger, sorry. But terrible really implies that you're afraid of the hamburger, okay? Now I just said terrible hamburger, which indicates something. For the most part, people in common use these words for the same meaning. The hamburger was really, really bad. It was horrible. It was terrible. Okay? So in common use, you can use either one to describe something that's really bad and you don't like it. It really doesn't matter. People do this all the time. They interchange. However, I also think it's valuable to understand the deeper meaning of the word. And terrible, because it's rooted in the word terror, has this meaning of causing fear or makes you frightened. So if you really want to choose your words carefully, and I suggest that, I think it's a good goal to have. I mean, we have two different words and the meanings are slightly different. So we shouldn't just throw words around like popcorn. We should use them to express the meaning that they carry. We should learn, now it's a long goal, but we should learn to use the right word for the right meaning. So that's the difference, okay? Now, this week's word is something new. Not related to horrible and not related to terrible, yet it's related to the meaning of bad. So this week's word is ridiculous. Okay, and this definition is stupid or unreasonable and deserving to be laughed at. Something very silly. Now remember, this theme is words you can use instead of bad. So why would I use ridiculous for something that's bad? Well, if it's unreasonable in a situation where something should be reasonable, then it's bad. Okay? So the idea is that, things that are funny and silly and to be laughed at are great in a comedy show, right? Then it's not bad, it's good. You want comedy to be laughable and ridiculous. But what if you have a serious situation, right? And someone gives you really bad advice that you would laugh at. I'll give you an example. At the beginning of the pandemic, the US President Donald Trump, in a speech, said something about drinking bleach as a cure for COVID. Well, that's ridiculous. It's so stupid and so unreasonable in a very serious situation where it shouldn't be funny, that we should laugh at it. It's so stupid. It's unreasonable. So that's what makes it bad, when something is funny when it should be serious. We would say that's ridiculous. If you ask somebody to do something that's just impossible, you can say, excuse me, oh, that's ridiculous. Okay? So now I want you guys to try using this word. So in the comment thread, I want you to give me a sentence using the adjective ridiculous. Now remember, it's an adjective, so it needs to come before a noun. So for example, let's say, oops, wrong side. Trump made a ridiculous suggestion, right? He made a ridiculous suggestion. Suggestion is a noun, so ridiculous is an adjective that describes the noun suggestion, okay? Now you guys try. Give me a sentence in the comment thread where you use this adjective in a sentence, and we'll see how you're doing it, okay? And I see already here's a good suggestion from Mr. Tireth. Now, Tireth is a regular viewer, and he's in Nepal. He's actually a teacher in Nepal. So he says music can be horrible but not terrible. Yeah, generally music doesn't make me afraid, right? It's bad in the way, something that's terrible is bad in the way that it causes me fear, right? Whereas horrible just makes me, I don't like it. So technically speaking, music shouldn't really be terrible. Although, you know, scary music in a scary movie, that can be terrible. Okay, we have some examples already. We have Maria Cristina. She says, his behavior like a child was ridiculous. Okay, so the sentence here is ending with ridiculous, but it's actually modifying the noun behavior. Behavior ridiculous, ridiculous behavior. Very good sentence. Now, if a child is acting childish, we expect it, right? We wouldn't call a child's behavior ridiculous. But if a grown woman's husband is acting like a child, we would say that's ridiculous because he's an adult. He should be acting like an adult, not a child. So in that context, his behavior can be considered ridiculous. Okay, Tireth says, his dress is ridiculous. He's wearing school uniform in the party. Exactly. When you go to a party, you don't usually wear your school uniform or any kind of uniform, really. You want to dress more casually or, party suitable clothing. So that's good. His dress is ridiculous. Okay, Muhammad Hassan says, my friend took a ridiculous decision. Good. And by the way, this is an interesting sentence, Muhammad. I'm not sure what country you're in, but the noun decision, now I live in Canada, and in North America, where Canada and the US are, the verb that we usually use with decision is not take or took. It's make or made. So take a decision is usually used in British countries like, England and the UK or Australia. Now Canada used to be part of the British Empire, but it's more influenced by the US these days. So that's very interesting. It's not wrong. It's just a different usage that's not common in North America. Very interesting. Okay, let's see what else we have. We have Roni from Bangladesh, teacher from Bangladesh, yeah. We have Chris's example. I was an auditor and saw ridiculous practices with which managers wanted to prove that they were working as expected. Great sentence. Ridiculous practices, right? Now Maki's example. My husband looked ridiculous in a new that he bought yesterday. New what? We have the word new, but new is an adjective. We need a noun here, Maki, a new something. He looked ridiculous in a new jacket, for example, or a new hat, right? Otherwise, really nice sentence here. Ah, okay, great. Thank you, Maki. Yeah, new hat, exactly. It's funny, I was just thinking that. You know, it's kind of funny. It's very common for men to wear kind of caps, ball caps. But I find sometimes that, now maybe I'm a little old-fashioned, I'm not sure. Didn't think I was, but guys are wearing ball caps when they go to restaurants or when they're at a party. And to be honest with you, I think that looks a little ridiculous. Ball cap is fine when you're outside or playing sports, obviously, or I wear a cap when it's raining because I don't like to carry an umbrella. But I see guys wearing ball caps at restaurants, like nice restaurants or parties. For me, that looks a little ridiculous. It looks a little childish if you're a grown man wearing a cap in a nice restaurant or something. I don't know, it's just my opinion. Oh, we have Wako from Japan with us. Wako says, the fried chicken I just ate was ridiculously tasty. Now, this is a really good sentence, Wako, because Wako is using the adverb form of ridiculous. But look what she's doing. She's putting it in front, not of a noun, but of another adjective. And when you put an adverb in front of an adjective, it becomes an intensifier. She could just say, the fried chicken I just ate was tasty, but she wants to really intensify tasty's meaning. So she puts an adverb, ridiculously tasty. That means like super tasty, right? So you can use the adverb to modify a verb, of course. Like, I sang ridiculously. That's the adverb use. But you can use an adverb to intensify an adjective. Really great example. Anyone else have another example? Let's see. Try to use this adjective in a sentence, and then we'll move on. While I wait for your next sentence, I'm going to get a little water. Okay, we have another one. This is really radical situation. Okay, now the sentence is good, but the spelling of radical is a different word. Radical means extreme. So try to notice the spelling here, sorry. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Not radicals, ridiculous. So the spelling needs to be fixed there. But otherwise, that's an excellent sentence. Anyone else have another idea? Another sentence example? What can I show you that's ridiculous? Ridiculous. What's ridiculous to you? Any ideas, guys? Ah, Mohammed's got a nice example here. She sang a ridiculous song. Excellent, excellent. We have an example from Chris, and Chris is using ridiculous in the classical adverb form to describe the verb. I dance ridiculously. Ridiculously tells us how she danced. How she danced. It's an adverb of manner. An adverb of manner. Okay. Excellent sentences, guys. Okay, so I'm going to clear the board. So that's our word of the day, guys. A word you can use instead of bad, something specific, stupid or unreasonable, and deserving to be laughed at, very silly, ridiculous, okay? Thanks for doing that. Now, by the way, guys, if you don't know me, I am the host of the YouTube channel Hardboiled English. You may be even watching the show on my YouTube channel at this moment. And on that channel, you can see my main video series, English Weirdness, which is a long-form investigation into the mysteries of the English language and its grammar. And it features animations, little dramas. And what's really cool about this series, I think, is that I make this series with my students. No professionals are involved in the making of this show. We make this together as a project. I'm also the co-host of a new podcast dedicated to exploring the situation of the state of the education field related to Japanese learners. So if you're a Japanese learner or a Japanese English teacher, this is a great podcast to tune in because every 2 weeks we have a new guest. And our most recent episode features Sachi Kikuchi, who is an Japanese to English translator. And she's got an amazing story of translating the survivor stories of people who survived the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami of 2011. So tune into that episode. It's really interesting with my co-hosts Anish Daya and John McGraw. This is a relatively new project. We've also had Rie Eichmann and Sakurako Oshima on the podcast, which was fantastic as well. So check that out, guys. The other thing I want to mention before we get moving on is, starting in March, I'm going to be launching a whole series of online courses. Now, these courses will be specifically about English writing in a whole variety of packages. There'll be courses related to general writing skill. There'll be courses designed to elevate writing scores on tests like IELTS and TOEFL. There'll also be specific courses for every type of academic essay, like an argument essay. How do you write one of those? A cause and effect essay. How do you write one of those? How do you write a process analysis essay? And how you do academic research writing in college. So these will be launching in March, but you can actually sign up earlier than that. Next week, if you follow me on social media at Hardboiled English, you can start signing up for these programs. And because they'll be new, I'm going to be launching them at very low costs. There will be costs involved because there's costs involved in making them, but I do want to make them available for everybody. So they'll be very affordable. So keep your eye out for that. My new courses, it's going to be what I call the Hardboiled English Workshop. And you can study with me in these classes. Okay, let's move on, guys. At this point, I want to know what your English mystery is. What do you want to know about English? What questions do you have about this crazy language that have been nagging you, that you don't quite understand? What's the difference between this and this? Anything you want to know. Put your question in the comment box. Now, I think I have seen a question already popped up in here. Where is it now? Yeah, here's one. So this is by Mohammed Hassan, and he says, I have got GPA 5. Is this correct? Almost. Not bad. It's pretty well done, actually. We have, I have got. Now what you need here is the article. You need the indefinite article a. I have got a GPA of 5. Or it's also common to say a 5.0 GPA. And this section here is your noun phrase. I say phrase because there's more than one word. So a phrase is a combination of words without a verb. And so we need an article to connect this noun. So I have got, you have a subject, you have a present perfect verb. Now it's a good sentence. Now it's accurate. So your sentence is pretty darn close, actually, Mohammed. So good job there. Very good. Okay, let's have another. Well, I see another question here. I go to school every other week. I go fishing every other week. How many times does each event occur? Okay, good question. Every other week means a sequence of weeks, but not week, 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 week. Okay? So let's look at 1 month. What month are we in? January? So here's January. Most months consist of 4 weeks, generally, right? So week number 1, week number 2, week number 3, week number 4. Okay? You look at your calendar, you can find the exact dates. I don't know them offhand. But let's say, for example, like my podcast, the Ego Education podcast. We don't broadcast that podcast every week. Every week? No. We broadcast that every other week, which means it might appear in week 1. Right? Now, this would be every week. Week 1 has a podcast, week 2 has a podcast, week 3 has a podcast, week 4. Every other week means you skip one, right? You have a broadcast this week, but then you skip a week and do it here. So your question is, how many times does each event occur? Well, if you're doing every other week, we can say the event occurs once, skip a week, twice, skip a week, and then into the next month. So in 1 month, the event happens twice. Okay? 1 month, the event happens twice. Now there are 12 months in a year. So that adds up to 24 events. And I think some months have 5 weeks, so you're going to have to check your calendar. So your question, how many times does each event occur? We have to also know how many times does each event occur when? Within a month? Within a year? Right? But every other week means 1 week, skip a week, another week, and then so 2 weeks in a month, basically. Another way of saying this is, we can also say every second week, right? Because this is the first week. And then the second week, my podcast happens, is not this one, it's this one, right? So, and the other thing is, compare it to the phrase every week. Every week means here, then here, then here, then here. A perfect sequence. Every week. Every other week means we skip that week and do it here. So every second week or every other week, that's basically 2 weeks a month. Okay? Very interesting question. Which means I go to school once every 2 weeks. Maybe. I don't know. You tell me. Do you? If you have a class in week 1, right? One class in week 1, not in week 2, another class in week 3, yes, you go to school once every 2 weeks. But if I say school, I usually go all week long, right? I might go on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So 5 times every 2 weeks, right? It all depends what you're talking about. It all depends what you're talking about. So hopefully that answers the question. I also want to say hello to Mark Zeggers joining the show. Hi, Mark. How are you? Hope everything's cool. Now, let's see. I think I have another question here. Okay, we have a question here from Sakurako. She says, could you tell me the difference between those? Company, corporation, Inc., incorporation. Very nice question. A business question. So let's look at that. Now, I've told you guys before about what I call the magic triangle in language. So it's worth reminding you what that is. The magic triangle is the idea that when we talk about language, we're talking about 3 elements that are always working together. Those 3 elements are the form, And form is grammar, vocab, structure. Language is always interacting with meaning and use, the way we use it. And the way we use it changes through time, right? A word might have a bad meaning in your parents' generation and then a positive meaning in our generation. Words change, the way we use it. So they're always interacting. So especially when you ask a question like, what's the difference between this and this? Sometimes the meaning's the same, but the grammar is different. Maybe one's a noun, one's a verb. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, the word company is a noun, right? The word corporation is a noun too. And then we have incorporation. It's a noun, so we have 3 nouns. So, all 3 forms are the same. Okay? Now let's think about the meanings. What's a company? Well, I don't have the definition ready, but a company is a business organization, I think. Let's call it that. A business organization. A bunch of people who come together to make business, right? In one company. What's another bunch of people? How about a bunch of people who are related by birth? Is that a company? No, that's a family, right? How about a bunch of people related by friendship? Is that a company? No, that's a bunch of friends, right? A squad, whatever the kids are calling it now. Yo, these are my peeps, they're my squad. A group of friends, okay? So a company is a specific group of people who come together in an organization for business. That sounds a little bit like this one, a corporation. Okay, what's the difference? Well, the difference is a corporation is a legal word. It's an economic and legal word. It's a business organization, legally structured company. Okay? So let's say you start a business selling lemonade on the street corner, right? A lot of children do that. They sell something that they make, like lemonade or maybe cookies, and they sell them in their neighborhood. Are they a corporation? No, because they haven't registered it with the legal process or the government as a corporation for tax reasons. But we can call them a little company. Let's say 2 friends make a lemonade stand on their street corner and they're selling lemonade for $1 to all their neighbors. Well, we can say that's a little company. That's a little business organization. There's only 2 people, but it's a little business. But it's not a legal corporation yet. So corporation is a legal entity. And it's registered with the government. The government knows it exists and expects taxes, right? If you're a corporation, you are listed in the government and you are an economic entity and they expect taxes from you. You have responsibilities, right? By law. What's incorporation? Well, incorporation is the process of becoming a legal business or company. Okay? So incorporation is the process you go through of making your company into a legally structured entity. I'll give you an example. My company is Hard Boiled English. Okay? When I started, it was just me. So Hard Boiled English is really just me. So I started basically as a business, just a company, just me, but not legally. I didn't register it yet. But now that I make money at my company from private coaching, I have to pay taxes as a company. So I am legally structured and registered as a corporation. I went through the process of incorporation and became incorporated. So we have this other word, incorporated. which is the past participle verb. Past participle verb, or we can use it as an adjective. We can say that business is incorporated. Okay? Now you can see the first three letters here, Inc. And that's often put at the end of a business to tell you that it is legally registered. So we can say something like hard-boiled English Inc. Now you know that that company is legally registered. And if you do business with that company, you are protected by business law because it's a legal company. It has responsibilities. So if, for example, you do business with a company and they don't give you the product, you can take them to court because they're a legal existing company. Okay? Sakurako, I hope that answers your question. Very interesting question. Yeah, and she also makes a correction to her question. She says not between, but among. Because when you use the preposition between, you need only two things. So what's the difference between this pen and this pen? Well, the color is the difference. But if you have more than two things, like three, 1, 2, 3 items, you need to start using among. Okay? Nice correction. Good self-correction. Okay, so here, Sakurako is asking incorporated. Yes, so incorporated is the description. So it's the verb and the adjective form. So if you want to describe a company, like Hard-Boiled English, is incorporated. It has gone through the process of incorporation. But incorporation is the noun. Incorporation is the process you go through. Hey, have you been through incorporation yet? No. Are you incorporated? You could be asking. Are you incorporated? Question. Is Hard-Boiled English incorporated? Yes. Right? Incorporated describes the state or the situation. It's the ed form of the verb that we use as an adjective. Very similar to something like I am married. I am married. It describes me. The business is incorporated describes the business, right? I'm excited. Excited describes my feeling. Incorporated describes the business. Is it an incorporated business, right? Is it incorporated? But you can also ask, is it a corporation? That's the noun indicating a legal entity, a legal business. Yeah, great. Oh, we have with us Hosan Amalo Bernales. Where are you from, Hosan? You're a new viewer, I think. Can you tell us what country you're from? It's always interesting, guys, to see what country everyone's in. Okay, I'm going to clear the board. And I want you to tell me what your English mystery is. What do you guys want to know about English? What has confused you? What has baffled you? What has flabbergasted you about English? Let's see if we can solve your mysteries. Right here, live on the air. Any ideas, guys? Any questions? What do you want to know? Let's see. I want to know where my friend Hosan is from. Ah, perfect. Am I saying that correctly? Hosan, or is it Josan? J sound or Ho sound? From the Philippines. Welcome to the show. Great to have you with us. Lovely, lovely, lovely. What's your question, guys? I'm going to play a little music while we wait. Let's have a little music here. Nice and soft in the background. A little mood music. So Waiha is clarifying the question. I go fishing every other week. It's not always once every 2 weeks. That's right. It's not you. The first sentence here, I go fishing every other week, sort of sounds like you go once, like maybe on Saturday morning after you're done work. It doesn't have to be that way though. You could say, I go fishing twice every other week. I go fishing once every other week. I go fishing 3 times every other week, right? Generally, I think if you say, I go fishing every other week, we understand you go once. Like if I say, my podcast streams every other week, I'm releasing 1 podcast. But it can be more, but you have to indicate it. You have to say, I go fishing twice every other week, or I go fishing 3 times every other week. So it is possible. Okay, Joe-san. Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm a big supporter of learning to pronounce your names correctly. I've worked with a lot of students from other countries who come to Canada, and they tell me their name, let's say in Korean, for example, and they say, but you can call me Bill, like a boy named Youngdae. He might say, my name's Youngdae, but it's hard for you to pronounce, so call me Bill. Well, I don't want to call you Bill. I want to learn to pronounce your name correctly, right? It doesn't matter if it's hard for me. It's my responsibility to pronounce your name correctly. So I think names are important. I think we should learn to pronounce each other's names properly, not change our names to make it convenient for someone else, right? So thank you for clarifying for that. Okay, Maki's got a question. Among and between. The discussion was between us 3. Okay, good question. The strict answer is no, you shouldn't say that. You should say the discussion was among us 3, right? Among. Anytime you have more than 2 objects, more than 2 nouns, like between means this. Let's say we have a house and another house. We have 2 houses. And then we have a little... I'm a terrible artist. You'll know this soon enough, guys. We have a dog. We say the dog is between the houses. It tells us the position of these nouns. Look at the nouns we have. We have 2 nouns here and 1 noun here. We have 3 nouns to deal with. And prepositions tell us the position of nouns to nouns, the relationship between objects, between nouns. For example, where's my box? Yeah. I have a box. Box is a noun. I have a pen. Pen box. Pen box. Well, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You have no idea of how these objects are related in 3-dimensional space. But watch what happens when I say pen in box. Now you know the relationship. There's a box, and in it is a pen. Or I could say pen on box. Now you know the relationship in space. That's what prepositions do. They can connect nouns in space, and we can see the spatial relationship. Pen above my head. Head's a noun, pen's a noun. What's the relationship? If I just say pen head, what the hell does that mean? So, the preposition here is between, and it tells us the relationship between these 3 objects. House, house, and dog. The dog is between them. But what if we add a 3rd house over here? And let's say there's a pathway here, and a pathway here, and a pathway here. Well, now the dog is is not between 2 houses, it's among 3 houses. So technically, strictly speaking, you should learn to say among, right? Especially when you're talking about people. So for example, the discussion was between us three. I understand it. So, and people will say that. They will say between us three. But if you're asking me what the most accurate English is, you should use among. Okay? You should use among. For more than two objects, more than two nouns, you should use among. Technically, that's how it works. Why should we do that? Because we have two different words. Two different words have two different meanings. We have among and we have between. We shouldn't just throw words around. We should use them to express the meaning that defines them, right? Between has a purpose, among has a purpose. When we're trying to improve our English, we want to use the right word for the right meaning. Now, it depends how good you want your English to be, right? It's not necessarily about right and wrong. It's about how accurate, how precise you want to be able to communicate in English. If you just want to travel and say hi, you don't have to worry about this kind of stuff, right? But if you want to use English for business or academics, or if you just want to have your English be as good as it can be, you want to learn these little differences because they're differences in meaning. Oh, sorry. So Mackie, the short answer is, can I say the discussion was between us three? Sure. If you do that, you're not going to jail, right? But you're not using the most meaningful preposition for that idea. The best preposition is among. Here's an interesting question Chris has. It's challenging to know when I must use a voiced or non-voiced sound. Yes. So this is a very common issue, the difference between voiced and unvoiced. Voiced in English means the sound is produced with a vibration in your larynx. And certain sounds use vibration. Other ones just use air, like the letter P. P, P. There's no vibration. It's just air, P, right? A word like, a sound like Z, Z. I need vibration for that. And the morpheme or sound unit TH can be either. We can have voiced usage and unvoiced usage, right? So for example, words like theater, theater. If I put my hand here and say theater, there's no vibration. It's just air passing through. I still have to make the TH sound by putting the tongue on my teeth. By the way, that's the only way to make that sound, right? A word like mother, mother. I have to use my tongue between my teeth to make the TH sound. But this one has a vibration. Mother, right? And if you don't use your tongue and your teeth that way, guess what you end up saying? You end up saying maza, maza. Well, that's not the right sound. Maza has no meaning in English. The only way to produce the TH is with the tongue between the teeth. And then you have a choice, vibration or just air. So a word like theater is unvoiced, but a word like mother has that vibration. Okay? And the rules are not all that clear, to be honest with you, Chris. So it is a challenge to keep going with this. It's a challenge to try and identify the pattern. I wonder if I have a document I can send you that might... Let me see if I can locate a document, Chris. I know you're on my email list, so I'll send you a document if I can identify a pattern for you, right, between these two. That's a really interesting question. We're down to a few minutes, guys, so I'm going to scroll here and see if I can answer something quickly. Waiha, thank you. This is interesting. In the past, people use the adjective dramatic very often for something unexpected, exciting, but now I see that people don't use it so much. Has something changed? Yeah, okay, good question. So as I said before with that magic triangle, this is related to use, not form or meaning, but the way we use something in our culture, right? That changes through time, and it changes as the culture changes. Dramatic, what does it mean? Well, it comes from the word drama, right? Drama. What is drama? Drama is a story acted out with characters, right? It comes from the theater. Drama, from the ancient Greek theater all the way up to the European theater, to the American Broadway theater, and eventually to cinema. It's when we see a story told by watching characters acting out situations. One person wants something, the other person prevents them from getting it. And we know that in stories that are dramatized, by the way, what's the opposite? The opposite would be literature, right? Literature doesn't show you actors acting out the story. You read the words, and the words tell you the story. Drama is when you watch characters. You watch actors acting it out. And when you do that, whether it's theater or cinema, we know about things like the plot twist, where unexpected things happen, right? For example, a boy is planning to ask his girlfriend to marry him. So she buys him a ring. And we see him at the store buying the ring, and he spends every last penny of his dollar to buy this ring because he loves his girlfriend so much. And he's got a bit of money left to pay for a nice dinner. He invites his girlfriend out for a nice dinner. So, here's the drama. The boy and the girl are at dinner, and he's nervous. We see him sweating. We know he's got the ring in his pocket. The woman has no idea what's coming. So he says, Rachel, you know I love you. We've been dating for 2 years now, and you're the most important person in my life. I love you with all my heart, and I want to live with you forever. I want to grow old with you together. I want to have a wonderful life together. Suddenly, another man walks into the restaurant, and the girlfriend recognizes him. Oh, hi, Bill. So Bill comes over the table and says, hi, what's going on? And the girlfriend says, oh, this is Bill. He asked me to marry him yesterday. We're getting married next month. Plot twist. We didn't expect that. We expected the boy to ask the girl to marry him, and we know that there's two possibilities, right? She's either going to say, no, sorry, I'm not ready for marriage, or, yes, let's get married. Happy ending. We did not expect another guy to show up that she's already engaged to. That would be a dramatic moment, right? Now, that's the correct usage. That's where it comes from. Dramatic is related to drama in the theater or the cinema. As cultures grow, though, when we encounter a situation in real life that's similar, that is like a dramatic situation in a theater or a cinema story, we might say that's dramatic, right? For example, I went on a trip to Toronto over Christmas to visit my parents. When I came back, I expected that I would have a couple of days off. I would do my live show, and on Monday I would start working with my private students again. That was what I expected. But when I got home after the first day, I was sick with COVID. I was fully vaccinated, but I got COVID, and I was actually quite sick, despite being vaccinated and generally a pretty healthy person. I was not expecting that. So I could say, getting sick was dramatic, right? Do we hear this word used a lot? Maybe, maybe not. It depends. It depends how old someone is, right? Young kids have different words that they use, right? They might say, dude, that was dope. Or whatever the cool word is, radical, dude, random. You know, the young people come up with all kinds of new adjectives all the time. Maybe dramatic was used temporarily, you know, because young people also follow the trends from pop culture, from TV shows or movies. And if a character says dramatic in their favorite show, well, they'll start saying it, right? If you've noticed that people don't use it that much, that's interesting. I don't know. Actually, I don't hear it that much either. I hear it when people are actually describing something that happens technically like this, something they're not expecting. Getting COVID when they didn't expect it. Or their friend asks someone to marry them and another person enters the picture. That would be dramatic. And I would call that dramatic, right? We also use this adjective sometimes, Carmen, to describe the scale of something. Something much larger or longer than we expected. You might say something like, hey, last week there was an incredible volcanic explosion in the South Pacific. And we saw dramatic images from the satellite on the news. I wonder if you saw that. From the satellite, you could see the ocean, and suddenly this gigantic, enormous cloud appeared from the volcano. The images were very dramatic, right? You don't expect to see such a large thing on a satellite image. Very dramatic. That's when you use that word still. And I think most people, at least most adults, would say that. Something that always comes up, guys, when people ask me about English. Should I say this or should I say that, teacher? Well, a lot of that will depend on how well you want to speak English. For what reason? Do you want to use it in business? Well, then you better work on it. You want to use it in academics? You better work on it. You want the best possible English. But if your goal is just to speak like a native speaker, like a, casual use English, then you don't need to have perfect English. But then you have to ask yourself, what kind of native English speaker do you want to speak like? A 15-year-old kid? An adult? What kind of adult? A truck driver? A soldier? A lawyer? A doctor? Who do you want to sound like? That's going to determine the level of English you want to try for. So it really depends on your goals, guys. So great question, Carmen. We're just about out of time, guys. So I'm going to have to stop here. It's actually 8 o'clock in my time. Now, if I have not answered your question, you've asked a question here. I see a couple outstanding. I promise you I will answer them at the top of the show next week. So I'm going to record them and we'll address them at the start of next week's show, okay? So I apologize, but I like to keep this 1 hour show because time is limited for my camera system. It tends to overheat, so I don't like to push it too far. I see a question about per se and a question about few, couple, and several. I'll address that to the group next week, okay, guys? So I apologize if I didn't answer it tonight, but I assure you I'll answer it next week, okay? So just a reminder, guys, check out the podcast, the Ego Education Podcast. You can find it on YouTube, and you can find it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can find it on my YouTube channel, Hardboiled English. Check out English Weirdness if you haven't already. It's on my YouTube channel. And follow me on social media at Hardboiled English or hashtag Hardboiled English. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram at Hardboiled English. Connect with me. Tell me what you want to learn. And stay tuned for my announcements about upcoming events, webinars, and the launch of my online courses, which I'm really excited to share with you. Okay, guys, thank you very, very much for attending the show tonight. It's always a pleasure to work with you and to hear your questions, to see what countries you're from. It's It's always wonderful to meet new viewers out there and see the kind of questions you have. Hopefully, I always try to do my best to answer them and help you understand this crazy language. So in the meantime, guys, please take care of yourselves. Stay as healthy as you can. This COVID stuff is no joke. And it doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care how healthy you are. So please, please take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Don't travel if you don't have to. I made the decision to travel to Toronto to see my parents because my parents are getting old. They've had some health issues. I wanted to see them. I knew there was a risk. And turns out that risk prevailed. So guys, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you all for being with me tonight. Hopefully I answered your questions well enough that you now understand them. I'll be back here Friday night next week. Friday night in Vancouver time, same place. Until then, guys, take care. Keep learning English. Keep asking questions. And until I see you next time, as always, stay cool.